Morning everybody, I'm Chad with Just Add Wood. Today we're going to build a door in front of this water heater closet. Shaker style cabinet door out of 1x4s, 1/4-inch plywood, a little bit of glue and some pocket hole screws. Very simple, very effective. Probably not fine furniture quality, but good enough for shop furniture doors. Follow along. What I did prior to this video was had a plumber come out and push this water heater into the corner as far as he could. This used to be an exposed water heater, which is typical in the Southeast. In the garages, they put the water heater on a pedestal and they leave it exposed in the garage. The water heater tucked into the corner, I just framed a wall around it, hung the drywall, and trimmed it in 1x material. And I'm gonna add some vents to the wall in the wainscoting. So first thing we're gonna do is build a door for this water heater closet, and we're going to build it very similar to the doors that I built in the corners of the garage where I built some extra cabinet. They're just standard panel doors. I forget what they're called. They're just standard doors, and I'm going to show you a real quick down and dirty way to make shop cabinet doors without a whole lot of effort. Just some standard trim from the big box store and some pocket holes. So the first thing we need to do is measure the opening, and it's 22 3/4 inches by 82 1/4 inches tall. I'm just going to add 1 inch to those measurements to have a 1/2 inch overhang in each direction. Before I cut the uprights, or the stiles as they're called, I'm trimming off the edges. They're never square, and they're never the same length, even though they're called 8-foot boards from the big box store. They're not. Always start with a fresh 90-degree cut to square up the end, so you know you're getting good measurements. And I'm just using a speed square here as a guide. It's very easy to do as a straight edge. And then once that's done, I'm just taking the cutoff piece to measure and cut the rails, or the top and the bottom piece, the horizontal pieces, and figuring out how wide to cut your rails or your horizontal pieces is super easy. No rocket math involved. Just lay your stiles or your upright pieces on your workbench or your sawhorses at the width that you want your door to be, and then just cut the horizontal pieces to fit in between the gap. It's just that easy. There's no rocket math involved. Once you get them cut, you can lay them out, check your overall measurement to make sure you're on the mark, and you're good to go. Alright, so we're going to assemble this door using pocket holes. And so here I have bolted my pocket hole jig to my sawhorse, and I'm just running test holes on an extra piece of wood on one of the cutoffs. I love my Craig jig, but I always do a test cut. Never know when it's going to turn out right, or if I've got it set right. So doing a test cut here, everything looks good. So we're going to go ahead and install the pocket holes on both of the horizontal pieces, also known as the rails. Just flipping the board over, do it on both ends of both pieces. After all of the holes are installed, you can lay it out and get it ready for a glue up. So I'm just using my glue bot here and using the official glue spreader, my finger. And I am using the Craig's clamps on these. Pocket holes tend to push your piece all over the place when you try to install the screws. So do clamp those down if you're using pocket hole screws, or the board will likely move on you. So I've clamped the board down. I'm going to install the pocket screws on all 4 corners. And then I'm going to come back and measure for square. Now this is very important. Not that I think the boards are off or my cuts aren't square, but once you assemble everything, you want to make sure that your door is square. So after all of your pieces are all screwed together, you can check for square very easily by measuring diagonally from opposite corners. So if your measurement is the same, then you know your door is true and square. So just measure from one corner and then from the other corner, and there you go. My measurements are the same. So here I am, I'm just clamping the door down to the sawhorses so they don't move while I'm installing the remaining rails. And so while I'm finishing the glue up here, I just want to reiterate how easy of a project this is. You don't have to have a shop full of fancy tools. This is a total driveway project on a set of sawhorses. You don't have to have a track saw. You don't have to have a fancy pocket hole jig. I'm using some very inexpensive pieces from Amazon, and it's very easy to do even out in a driveway with a skill saw and a drill and a driver. Now that I've got the frame completely assembled, I'm just going to check it for square one more time to make sure it didn't move while I was putting the final pieces on. If it did move, you could just twist it around a little bit and get it where you needed to go. To install the 1/4 inch plywood back panel to this door, I'm going to use a trim router with a 1/2 inch rabbet bit with a 3/8 inch bearing set at a 1/4 inch deep. I've put the name of the rabbet bit on screen for you there. It is a dirt cheap Amazon purchase and it's served me well so far with several projects. It's less than $20. It's super useful. Just create a groove or run a rabbet around the inside back of this frame to allow the 1/4 inch plywood to fit down flush into the frame. There are numerous ways you can install the back of a door. You can just screw and glue it onto the back. You can create an inset like I'm doing here. There's numerous ways to attach this 1/4 inch plywood back panel. I'm just doing a 1/4 inch rabbet around the perimeter of the frame to allow the plywood to inset into the frame. After you've made your rabbet or your groove around the entire inside of the frame, then you can measure and you'll know exactly how wide to cut your piece of plywood. What I'm going to do here is lay a 2-inch piece of rigid foam down on the driveway, then lay your plywood on it, and that way my blade won't cut into my concrete and ruin my blade and possibly my saw. And I'm just using a entry-level Amazon track saw with Amazon tracks here. All of the products I'm using will be linked in the description below. This is not a sponsored video. I don't have any sponsors, and they're not affiliate links. They're just links to the products I'm using and I like. You'll notice the router rabbet on the back of your frame is going to leave round corners. So you have two options at that point. You can either chisel out square corners in your frame, or you can sand off the square corners on your plywood. So here I'm just using an orbital sander to turn the sharp corners into curves to match the router bit in the back of the frame. After I've sanded down all 4 corners, then I'm going to take my piece of plywood and see how it fits. So I've set the frame back up and I'll drop it in place and it looks like a good fit. So once all that's done, I'm going to give it a light sanding. It's so much easier to sand while these pieces are apart. You'd never be able to get in the nooks and crannies once you've assembled it. So I'm just giving it a once over to get all the surfaces sanded, break all the edges, make sure all of my pocket hole joinery is flat and flush, and then I'm just going to give the plywood a once over as well, both sides. And then you're ready for glue up. Again, I'm using my glue bot here. I'm just going to run a bead of glue around the inside and drop it in place. And then I'm going to come back with a cordless nail gun and use 5/8 brad nails to glue and staple this back panel together. And again, this is not a sponsored video. I'm just a weekend warrior, do-it-yourself kind of person who doesn't have a wood shop to work in, so I'm working in my driveway right now. Please leave any questions down in the description and let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you. All right, so the door we built has come together really nice. Overall, it's only taken a couple of hours to put this whole thing together. Everything was done out here in the driveway. You don't need a well-equipped shop to do this. I did utilize a track saw and a Craig's pocket hole jig, but you don't have to have that stuff to make this door. It's super fast, it's super easy, and it was done with materials from the big box store. None of this was milled up on any planers or jointers or any of that. This is readily available materials. Although the prices are astronomical right now, readily available materials at your local big box store. So if you're interested in building a shaker style door to jazz up your shop space, this is a really easy and effective way to do it. All I'm going to do now is smear some paint around on it and get it hung up and call this project completed. Here, the door turned out really nice. Got the paint on it. All I have left now to install the hinges and get it hung in the hole. Just using standard big box store 1/4 inch overlay hinges. Self-closing, should go together fairly easy. I allowed for a 1/2 inch overlap on all 4 sides. It's good enough for shop furniture. I'd also like to mention that the apron I'm wearing, my lovely wife bought for me from the catsmoseswoodworking.com website, and I really, really like it. All right, everyone. That wraps up this shaker style cabinet door for garage furniture. Really cleaned up the corner, hides the water heater. Thanks for following along. If you're interested in this sort of thing, as I continue to build out my 2-car garage into a workshop, please follow along. I plan on building some shelves up there above my refrigerator next. Thanks for watching.